What I'm talking about today, I'm talking about what IVF is like for men. Women have the hardest job, but there is a job that the man has, and we'll get into some of this. And I don't want this to get weird for the family and stuff, so this could get weird, I guess, at some point. But first of all, we're going to talk about three different elements to IVF, what they entail. So first of all, for us, it was practicality. Secondly, I'm going to talk about the emotional side of it, and then third, I'm going to talk about the physiological side of it, including both Mandy and myself. If you don't know the backstory is we had tried for two years or so to get pregnant, and we're a little bit older now, and so it just wasn't happening. So we had some testing done, and you can get more information on this. And anyway, we wound up going to this one doctor, and they told us that the chances are like 0 to 4%, even with IVF. And then we were like, well, let's get a second opinion. But I'm not going to talk about that as much today as I'm going to talk about what IVF is like for the man. But if you want to see that, you can go back and watch the We Are Pregnant video, and I'll leave a card up here whenever this video is done, and you can watch that. So on to what we're talking about. Again, we're talking about practicality, emotional, and the physiological part of IVF. So practicality, we needed a practical way to get pregnant, and the natural way wasn't doing it. And also, I must preface this whole thing saying that this video, this IVF, is directed at not a donor, but at more directed towards someone who has a partner and they are doing this together rather than just somebody just being a donor for IVF for a lady to get pregnant. So anyway, on to the practicality. So I have three siblings whom I love very much. And growing up, while we did fight and all this stuff like most siblings do, looking back, we really wanted that for Maddie, and it just didn't seem to be happening. So like I said a little bit earlier, we went back, had some testing done, and it looked like it wasn't going to be possible for us to naturally have another child. So we did. We decided to go ahead and move forward with the IVF process. So there's money involved. It does cost money. I'm not even going to get into the numbers, not in this video. Maybe I'll get into the numbers in another video. But it's not cheap. But there are pretty easy ways to finance it and relatively inexpensive. So if you don't have the cash to do it, the timing is a big deal whenever it comes to this IVF process. So if you have any questions about this, feel free to ask any of these questions as we go along. I can bounce around between the practical side, emotional side, and physiological side. But the emotional side, I have to say, is a pretty big deal because, you know, as a man, not being able to naturally produce, for the sake of argument on this YouTube video, we're going to call them swimmers rather than what they are. So you feel emotionally, maybe you feel doing IVF, maybe you feel like you're not worthy, maybe you feel like you're not manly or whatever. And there's a little bit of emotional taboo to that, I guess. And I felt a little bit like that, not gonna lie. So not just me, but not just Mandy, but myself, we were both tested in this IVF process. And it turns out what they test is I'm going to talk about the man side of it because Mandy might be able to talk to the women a little bit better than I could. But for me, the emotional part was having the testing done and them saying, well, this could improve and this can improve. They look at things like, I looked for my chart, but I couldn't find it. But they look at things like motility, which is the movement of the swimmers. They look at the quality, like if they're shaped right, correctly, your swimmers. And they look at the count, and they give you percentages. And in some percentages might fall below a certain threshold. There's like an average percentage. It's kind of like, when you take tests, you got below average, average, and above average. And most stuff falls into the average. Mine, the motility fell a little bit below average. So what they did is they didn't prescribe, but they recommended what was it? It was like a vitamin or something like that. They recommended some type of vitamin to me. and I was like, okay, I guess I got to take these vitamins. We also went to a naturalist doctor before we even decided to do IVF. So we tried multiple things first. So we didn't just go straight to IVF. We spent about almost a year dieting certain ways, and I don't know about the exercise as much, but there was some of that, but mostly diet. And that diet did help some, and I think that the diet actually fed into the IVF and helped the IVF be successful the first go around, because most of the time, whenever you do an IVF, it doesn't happen the first go around. A lot of times people have to go through this 2 or 3 times, so they're spending tens of thousands of dollars on this. Now, fortunately, very fortunately, we were very blessed that that wasn't the case with us. So anyway, emotionally, there's less emotion, I think, involved for the man. There's a little bit, but for the lady, for the person going through this with you, there's a lot more emotion involved. And in fact, I think as a man, your job is to be emotionally supportive of your wife, lady, whatever, whenever you're going through IVF, because there are a lot more than you think. There are a lot of appointments that you have to go to. Now, I would suggest if you're a man, going to as many appointments as you can. Now, the blood draws and things like that, not as important. But when you start talking about, your potential child, it's like your child. So I feel like you should be there for that child. And for the most part, I was able to make the majority of those appointments. Some of those you have to be there just because they're going to request samples and they want to talk to you both. You've got to sign documents, and there are all kinds of legal things, and they'll walk you through it every step of the way, and you'll have thousands of questions. And I'm sure I couldn't answer all of the questions right now, but I certainly could try because we've been through it. So that's kind of the emotional side of that. Now, I talked a little bit touch on the physiological part a little bit, and the physiological part is the testing. It's where, like I said a few minutes ago, where when they test you as a man, you come in, you provide a sample of your swimmers, and by the way, some of these places are comfortable and have a door that locks, and some of them are not. Now, the first place we went, they had a lounge chair, and it was a comfortable space. But the second place was just like this bench in this dark room, and it looks like what you would imagine in the movies is, I don't know, like a cell or something. And I don't even remember if that door locked. I want to say maybe it did, but I'm not sure. But they called it the library, which I thought was pretty funny. So inside the library, you do your business. But by the way, I don't know about other places, but the 2 places we went, they don't allow you to have assistance from your partner, from your loved one, and you got to go in there and do all this by yourself. No, like I said, family, if you're watching this, I hope you're not weirded out. Because it's kind of weird that I'm sitting here talking to you about this. So anyway, you provide the sample, and it's scary and interesting all at the same time. A little embarrassing, a lot embarrassing, because everybody knows what you did when you come out of that room, and also it's not that bad because you know that the majority of men that are there have done the same thing. So it's not that bad because kind of all in this together at the same time. So anyway, we did this at one place, like I said before, and they gave us a percentage, which was like 0 to 4%. Now that was emotionally painful because I remember reaching over, holding Mandy's hand as I was driving. I think I was driving or she was driving, and saying, you know what, I'm honestly okay if it's just Maddie. And it was a little upsetting for both of us. And we decided to get a second opinion. I had kind of resigned to the fact of it is what it is. But Mandy is very faithful and very strong and very willed, and she wanted a second opinion. So we went, got a second opinion at another clinic, and they said, you can do this. You need to do it right away, though. So we made a move pretty quick whenever we started doing this. So we started going through the process, filling out forms and all this stuff. I got tested again, we both got tested again. So I had a swimmer analysis done. Let's just call it that. I had a swimmer analysis done. They did this swimmer analysis, and then what they do is this egg retrieval. Mandy goes in, they retrieve her eggs. They actually put her to sleep. I think it's partially asleep. I can't remember if it's partial or full. But then they retrieve the eggs. Then they freeze them. And then I provide a sample. And then whenever it's time to, and then we had genetic testing done. They do this thing called ICSI where they take, they basically take a syringe in the egg like this, and they inject one of your swimmers into the egg. And that's how it happens. And they do this with as many eggs as you have, and then they're sent off. And then first of all, they let them grow, I guess, for a day or two, a couple days. And then the ones that survive, they send off, in our case, not in every case, but in our case, they send off for genetic testing. Now, they biopsy this from the opposite side. So if you have an egg like this, and then the embryo is down here, they biopsy this side because the cells are going to read the same as if you were pulling straight out of the yolk part, I guess you could call it. So, excuse me. So that's pretty interesting. So they send these off. They come back with results. And the results we had 3. I think we started out with 6. Then we had 4 that survived. And then I think we had 3 that were viable, as they call it. And then they biopsied all 3 of these. They sent these 3 off. And then we get results back in a week or so. We got the results back. We had 1 normal. We had 1 undetermined. They couldn't figure anything out. And the third one had a lot of problems, a lot of chromosomal problems, which wouldn't have resulted in a positive pregnancy anyway. So they're only going to, in this clinic, provide you with the egg that's normal. They grade them, I think, like A, B, AC. I want to say that this one was AB. I don't remember that 100%. But that is the very one out of starting with 8 down to 1 that was feasible and viable and possible. And that's the baby that's growing inside Mandy right now. So how exciting is that? That's extremely exciting for us. We're so happy about it. We're happy that Maddie's going to have a sibling. We're happy that we're going to have another daughter. We're super happy about that. And like I said in the previous video, I'm not disappointed about this at all. In fact, I'm really kind of excited about it. So anyhow, that's the story here with how all this worked. And, I said if you guys had questions, feel free to ask them. And I see there aren't really viewers here right now. So if you have questions about any of this, especially related to what it's like for a man or for men going through IVF, feel free to leave those comments. Feel free to leave a comment down below, because I'll answer it to the best of my knowledge, or at least provide you with some educational material that could help you out if this is something you're looking into. I'd really be interested to find out. So you can leave those comments down in the comment section below this video. So thanks for hanging out. I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Thank you very much, and I hope you guys have a great day.